inflation and the cost of living. And therefore, we are, as you are, looking for ways every day to see how to bring down and make our economy a competitive destination for investors, where cost of living for our people who are employed in industry would be able to make this economy a competitive destination so that we can attract investors. Chair, let me say as opening remarks that the recent happenings, particularly the post-COVID recovery period, where we've seen inflation in economies like the US, Canada, soaring to a high of 9%, is something that is being seen maybe in the last, 22 years, where we see Fed raising interest from a low of 1.5% to a 5.4% today, and then therefore causing the challenge of dollar unavailability in that tightening of monetary policy, and as seen particularly in the petroleum sector, unavailability of dollars because investors find it better to have their dollars sitting in investments, cash deposits, as opposed to allowing them to trade. But that is basically a post-COVID recovery of the inflation, where the US has decided to basically mop up the dollars they had issued during COVID to sustain their economies. And so that challenge is there. It's a global challenge. Those of us who trade in tea are unable to sell our tea in the international market because of unavailability of dollars in Pakistan, in Egypt, in Iran. And whereas we need those dollars to procure products which we don't produce as Kenya, like petroleum, pharmaceuticals, and all the other products. And lately, when we have a deficit in food because of the climate change issues and the fact that we have not been able to sustain food security, we need dollars to basically import food to sustain our people. And this has seriously impacted, and like I said, energy, petroleum alone, honorable members, do have a requirement of $500 million on monthly basis. We import products into Kenya worth $500 million on monthly basis. We bring in 8 cargoes, 4 cargoes of diesel. A cargo is 80,000 metric tons. We bring in 4 cargoes of PMS, that is super or petrol, and we bring in 1 cargo of DPK, dual purpose kerosene. And at a volume of about 750 cubic meters or meter cube, that is about $500 million every month. And to be able to, under the OTA system, honorable chairs, where the product will come into Kenya under OTS and be off-taken by the petroleum companies. Luckily, this product came off balance sheet. It is not traded by government, it is traded by the oil industry. And when it comes into the Kenya under the OTS system, what we do immediately is they have to off-take the product within 5 days. So you see a sacking of $80 million, $160 million, because we receive 2 cargoes every 2 weeks. So we'll require to pay $160 million every week to be able to off-take 2 cargoes, and a cumulative of $500 million for the month. And that is why we had the late nomenclature of G2G, where we went into deferred issuance of LCs, which would service after 6 months. And what that entailed, Honorable Chair, was to basically say, instead of paying for petroleum products on spot purchase every 5 days when the ship docks to Mombasa, on an LC that is issued and unwound immediately, let's go into relationship with governments who would understand the situations that we found ourselves in. And do an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, do a framework agreement where we would bring products on deferred LCs that would service every 6 months, or every LC would be serviced at an age of 6 months, and that basically there will be no accumulation of paying 6 months at a go, but paying as they mature for every cargo. And we did that, honorable members, to basically delay the exiting of $500 million every month, to address with my colleague, the CS Treasury, the macroeconomic issues of ensuring how do we allow those $500 million to be available to the pharmaceutical, to be available to some debt swaps which had been, some swaps which had been done on the Kenya shilling, awaiting the improvement of the dollar liquidity or availability in the country. How do we deal with the food challenge, given the drought that ravaged this region because of the climate change issues for the last 5 years? And so we were able to negotiate with friendly countries like Saudi Arabia, who are the world leading. I think they control 22% of the world oil reserves. We did work with Abu Dhabi and ENOC to work on a framework agreement that would give us products on deferred LCs, and therefore delay the exiting of dollars for a period of 6 months. That, honorable members, did give us some benefits in terms of managing the interbank spread, the speculative tendencies which were there, where everybody of the over 100 oil marketing companies were running around town every day looking for dollars for the spot purchase, and exacerbating the depreciation. Because the Minister for CS National Treasury here will tell us how we've been able to slow down depreciation of the Kenya shilling from a high of 3% to some 1%, albeit the depreciation is still there because the tightening of the monetary policy continues, because of what the background I gave in basically the US trying to manage its inflation. And we've seen countries like China and Russia trading in ruble, trading in their currencies, almost doing a barter trade in efforts to dollarize their economies, and so on and so forth. I've mentioned about tea. Those of us who trade in tea currently are not able to sell our tea because those other countries out there don't have dollars to pay us, and so on and so forth. So this has been one thing that we've done, Chair. We were able then, under that framework agreement, to negotiate for freight and premium, because the petroleum products are traded on Platts. The OPEC countries do fixed prices every month on basis of products which is released to the market every month. So because oil is internationally traded and we've got Platts pricing, the only area you compete on is freight and premium. The cost of bringing the product and the premium which is charged by the oil marketing companies, which we did negotiate and got a fairly competitive rate. Kenya today enjoys freight and premium on diesel of $88 per meter cube, against what is obtained today in the region, where we've seen a high of 260. I think currently Tanzania is having a freight and premium of about $160 per metric, per cubic meter or metric ton, if you do some literal conversion. So a high of 160 against Kenya 88. For PMS, we are currently having $95 per metric ton for super or petrol, whereas the region is having a fairly high rate, which I've shown in that document that I did circulate. And we've been, because we're dealing with a government to governments, agreed to that whenever the rates come down in the region, we are able to open that framework agreement and be competitive, so that we are always below the pricing in the region. Albeit we can't do much on the international pricing of petroleum, which has soared from a $70 to $80 to $90. And I read an article in the Financial Times the other day, because of the Hamas and Israeli war, that that the international prices could go up to $150, and that would literally mean our products going to a high of 300 shillings per liter at the pump. We hope it doesn't get there. So we are almost managing scaling the heights as we chew the gum every day to make sure we do manage this frame. And because I did say, Chair, that these are products which are real drivers of inflation. And so we are conscious, honorable members, we are working on it on a day-to-day basis to make sure that though it's a global challenge, we do obtain the best pricing for our country. Kenya is a gateway for Uganda, Kenya is a gateway for Congo, South Sudan, and so we are not just managing for Kenya, we are trying to really obtain the best as a gateway because of our port of Mombasa, which services the other countries which are landlocked in the region. So far, what are the benefits? I've mentioned a bit that we've slowed down the depreciation, honorable members, chairs. We've managed the interbank. I think Professor Njuguna